This video is just going to be a chatty, ranty kind of thing, so in the background is just some Binding of Isaac Rebirth gameplay. So, there's this attitude I've seen for the past several months popping up now and then, and it's really popped up again with the wsb-tv stuff. This sense that you, as a random member of the public, have to be really careful about how you deal with journalists, or how you even contact news stations. I think I saw someone saying, if someone's already tweeted or someone's already emailed, maybe don't email yourself. Someone else said, if I remember correctly, don't use up their goodwill. That people are talking like this is, to be frank, quite horrific, in my opinion. And that's not a judgment on those people speaking like that or suggesting that. It's that they feel they need to do that. The thought that people have to worry about how they approach journalists whose job is to inform the public very carefully in case they get overwhelmed and just don't fix what they're doing or lie, disgusts me. And it disgusts me because it's the incompetence and entitlement of press that has made people feel like that. Because if too many people message them, they may well ignore the issue and say that a mob is attacking them. And yeah, if you are super careful with how you deal with press and super gentle and lenient and maybe even help them, they won't have that excuse. But that you have to consider that at all is a massive issue. We live in a world with Twitter, we live in a world with email, we live in a world where they are publishing their articles onto the internet where the world can see it. They need to be prepared for the world to respond, or they need to quit. There is no middle ground. This is just the way it is now, and journalists have to be willing to do their job regardless of whether or not the public behaves to their liking. Otherwise, you're almost using your platform to blackmail the public, publishing lies and not changing it unless they behave how you want them to. You don't even need to actually have any dirt on them. You can make it up and you'll be trusted. Even better if you can speak generally about groups of people online. Paint with a broad brush, don't name any individual, but still paint them with it. Enough to make a group of people panic and feel upset, worried about what the next misdeed you accuse them of will be if they don't comply. But really, outlets and journalists should be the ones panicking about how to deal with the mass contact their articles might incite. They should be figuring out how to navigate the situation we're in where this dogpiling or mass communication happens, without hurting anyone and without just making stuff up, and without counting how many people have contacted them so they can bizarrely say, too many people have contacted me, I'm being harassed, I don't have to deal with it. Coverage being fair and accurate should not be dependent on that, and if it is for you, you need to quit or you need to be fired. One thing I saw talked about with this wsb-tv hoax was the recommendation that people be careful not to overwhelm the station because some guy is talking to them on Monday. And the reason people are worried about that is because of how they've seen press respond elsewhere. In the meantime, that article is up, spreading and doing damage. Sure, maybe if you get someone to hold their hand and help them correct it, they'll get it done. But slowly, and you'll need to do that every single time, because it's still going to be the same people with the same standard reporting on everything in the future. And if you're having to do all that work and obey the standards they need, you should really be on their payroll. If you care about your reputation and you want to enact change in press, you are going to have a lot of trouble. Everything you're going to find yourself needing to do if you want them to treat you nicely is exactly what they need you to do to not have to change. Do you want it to continue as it is, playing whack-a-mole forever with broken articles, fixing them one by one as they come up? Or do you want to cause a shift in standards that means journalists get it right the first time, or when they make a mistake, they admit to it and care enough to want to fix it? Because the second option is not going to result in you being treated fairly or nicely by press. For example, particularly regarding the Gamergate controversy, I've found myself far too often noticing journalists sort of washing their hands of issues because, you know, when you talk about that you get dogpiled. Just ignore it completely. Unless, of course, not ignoring it means using this dogpile as evidence that these people are commanded as some sort of evil army. The answer is not to try to restrain yourself to avoid contributing to a dogpile or whatever. It is for them to learn to deal with it. If you do change the world to make it so that that doesn't happen to them, well, journalists have just controlled the public for their own convenience. That's kind of messed up. It does solve that problem, but in a horrific and disturbing way. And I'm saying this for the sake of the people who are worried about the press's response to these things. Do not be worried. None of this is on you. It is entirely on them. When something happens and they don't deal with it and they blame you, don't think, oh God, how can I avoid this? Get furious. Do not take any responsibility for failures in reporting. Because yeah, I'm sure it is quite overwhelming if you receive hundreds or thousands of emails, or even tweets. It can be extremely hard and confusing to deal with internet controversies and angering all sorts of different groups of people. I'm sure it's embarrassing to make a big mistake that you need to correct and note the correction for everyone to see. I'm sure it's tempting to just hide evidence that you screwed up. But you're either the kind of person who can deal with all that, take full responsibility, and act with integrity to prevent issues and correct them when they arise, or you're the kind of person who cannot handle that, should not be a journalist, and whose work is liable to harm the public and be left up to them to fix. There are far too many of the latter kind of person working as journalists. If the way you deal with them leads to further shoddy reporting or failure to correct things, that's not you failing to intervene, that's just them further proving that they need to be out of this line of work. If the public complaining about press en masse or with the wrong language causes a problem, good. I hope the problem gets bigger. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.